Hey, good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 26 and 27. So, getting close to finishing up 1 Samuel here. And in 1 Samuel 26, I'm not going to go exactly verse by verse. I'm going to point out some highlights, capturing the essence of the chapter. But I do encourage you to read it through verse by verse, um, and just piece it together for yourself. Um, Okay, so chapter 26, we're going to see this another incident where David spares Saul's life, where he's at the point of being able to have vengeance, to take out Saul and go right into his kingship, taking the throne. But yet again, he doesn't. But let's look at this in detail. He's in the wilderness of Ziph, and the Ziphites once again report him to Saul, telling Saul of his whereabouts. And then Saul comes after him. And then we see in the middle of verse 3, but David stayed in the wilderness, and he saw that Saul came after him into the wilderness. David therefore sent out spies and understood that Saul had indeed come. And then David, knowing where Saul is now, with the spies having spied him out, he goes to the place where Saul was encamped, and Saul, all the people, basically the 3,000 soldiers encamped around Saul. And in verse 6, David has this interaction with two of his men. It says, "Then David answered and said to Ahimelech the Hittite and to Abishai the son of Zeruiah, brother of Joab, saying, Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp? And Abishai said, I will go down with you." And so now David and Abishai go down to where Saul is, and they find Saul sleeping. It says in verse 7, Saul lay sleeping within the camp with his spear stuck in the ground by his head, and Abner and the people lay all around him. Then Abishai said to David, same thing that he would have heard in the cave earlier when Saul rested right in front of him in the cave where David and his men were hiding in the cave. Abishai says, verse 8, God has delivered your enemy into your hand this day. Now therefore, please let me strike him at once with the spear right to the earth, and I will not have to strike him a second time. Abishai saying, man, give me one shot. That's all it's going to take, and I'll end this. Verse 9, David says to Abishai, do not destroy him. For who can stretch out his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? David said furthermore, as the Lord lives, the Lord shall strike him, or his day shall come to die, or he shall go out to battle and perish. The Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. But please, take now the spear and the jug of water that are by his head, and let us go. So David took the spear and the jug of water by Saul's head, and they got away, and no man saw or knew it or awoke. For they were all asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. This is an appointed time, as such, seeing here at the end of verse 12, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. So there's this protection we see from the Lord as David goes into the camp with Abishai. And yet again, we see David, look, Saul is in the hand of the Lord. I'm not going to take vengeance upon him. And then pointing out that whatever happens to Saul is up to the Lord. So he's going to die of one of three ways. He's either going to be stricken directly by the Lord, or just die of old age or what have you. His day will come, or in a battle against the Philistines, he'll perish. But David will not take things into his own hands when it comes to Saul. So now David has spear and jug in hand, and he and Abishai go out some distance from the camp on it says great distance. So now there's this distance between them, and David cries out to Abner, "Do you not answer, Abner?" he says. Then Abner answered, "Who are you calling out to the king?" So David said to Abner, "Are you not a man? And who is like you in Israel? Why then have you not guarded your lord the king? For one of the people came in to destroy your lord the king. This thing that you have done is not good. As the Lord lives, you deserve to die, because you have not guarded your master, the Lord's anointed. And now see where the king's spear is, and the jug of water that was by his head. I see this as a taunting. He's taunting Abner, saying, "Hey, you're supposed to be guarding your king. The Lord's your king," and yet he was just at the hands of his enemy, and he even has stuff to prove it. He's got the spear and the jug of water. Verse 17, then Saul knew David's voice and said, is that your son? Or excuse me, is that your voice, my son David? David said, it is my voice, my lord, O king. Why? And he said, why does my lord thus pursue his servant? For what have I done, or what evil is in my hand? Again, just, who am I? Who am I that you pursue me thus? What's up, man? Now, therefore, please let my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, let him accept an offering. But if it is the children of men, may they be cursed before the Lord. For they have driven me out this day from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, go, serve other gods. So now do not let my blood fall to the earth before the face of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to seek a flea, as when one hunts a partridge in the mountains. Beckoning to Saul, hey, if this is of the Lord, let's make an offering to him. But if it's of the children of men, then may they be cursed. So what's your motive, Saul? What's going on here? Why do you pursue me? I'm a flea. It's like you're hunting a partridge in the mountain. And as such, I'm a fellow Israelite. David's essentially saying, I'm a fellow Israelite. Yet because of the but whatever it is that stirred you against me, the children of men, let's say, then it's because of this pursuit, I'm being driven out of my own land. I'm wandering throughout the wilderness here, being driven out, by this. But again, I'm just a flea. And then there's another repentance here by Saul in verse 21. And he says, I have sinned, return my son. I have sinned, return my son David, for I will harm you no more, because my life was precious in your eyes this day. Indeed, I have played the fool and erred exceedingly. And David answered and said, here is the king's spear. Let one of the young men come over and get it. May the Lord repay every man for his righteousness and his faithfulness, for the Lord delivered you into my hand today. But I would not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. And indeed, as your life was valued much this day in my eyes, so let my life be valued much in the eyes of the Lord, and let him deliver me out of all tribulation. Then Saul said to David, may you be blessed, my son David. You shall both do great things and also still prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned to his place. So Saul gives up the pursuit in this moment. Another moment of repentance of Saul. But Saul's capricious. He changes back and forth. He's repenting again a second time. Because he realizes that David again is returning good for evil, and they part ways. In chapter 27, David's really not convinced. Yes, they part ways, but this has been an ongoing affair. And David said in his heart, chapter 27, verse 1, now I shall perish someday by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape to the land of the Philistines. David's obviously not convinced. He feels that this ongoing pursuit of Saul is ultimately gonna end in him perishing at the hand of Saul. And so he seeks refuge in the land of the Philistines. And Saul will despair of me. This is what David's thinking now. And Saul will despair of me to seek me anymore in any part of Israel. So David's, saying in his heart, he's just talk about an agreement. He's at this point of desperation, probably, even depression, of just, this is going to be ongoing. Fine. I'm going into the land of the Philistines, and Saul will seek me no more. I'm going to end this. This is how it's got to be. This is what I'm going to do. So David once again taking things into his own hands. Then David arose and went over with the 600 men who were with him to Achish, the son of Maach, king of Gath. So here's this king of the Philistines, right in the land of the Philistines. So David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, each man with his household, and David with his 2 wives. And it was told Saul that David had fled to Gath, so he sought him no more. So now Saul knows David's in the land of the Philistines. His pursuit stops. So, hey, David's safe, right? David in the land of the enemy, he's now safe. This is going to be a good picture for us, so take note. Then David said to Achish, "If I have now found favor in your eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country that I may dwell there. For why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you?" So Achish gave him Ziklag that day. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. Now the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was 1 full year and 4 months. David's with the Philistines for a whole, over a year, almost a year and a half. And of note here, which is fascinating, is, and we're going to shake this out a little bit, but this Ziklag, Ziklag, which was supposedly given by the king of the Philistines to David. If we look forward into 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verses 24 through basically through 30, there's this accounting of the family of Simeon. And what it says here, it says, starting in verse 24, the sons of Simeon were, and it gives us lineage, Nemuel, Jamim, Jarib, Zerah, Shaul, Shallum his son, Mibsam, the sons of Mishma. So it goes through this lineage and talks about them multiplying. And then it talks about where they dwelt. And in verse 28, they dwelt at, again, this is in 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 28, they dwelt at Beersheba, Moladah, Hazar Shual, Bilhah, Ezem, Tolad, Bethuel, Ormah, and Ziklag. So the land was actually already the land of the Israelites. This has been given to them by God. The Philistines, of course, this sea people, coming in from the Mediterranean, always approaching from the kind of the west and the south, pushing Israel and, occupying areas. And here's David, an Israelite, who had been given, the Israelites who had already been given this land, and yet now it's being occupied by the enemy, Ziklag, and given to David. So kind of an interesting play of events here. And again, we're going to shake that out because there's some key things to take from this. So Ziklag, now the time that David dwelt in the country. So we saw that David dwelt with them almost a year and a half, a year and 4 months. Verse 8 of 27, back in 1 Samuel. And David and his men went up and raided the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. For those nations were the inhabitants of the land from of old, as you go to Shur, even as far as the land of Egypt. Whenever David attacked the land, he left neither man nor woman alive, but took away the sheep, the oxen, the donkeys, the camels, and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. Then Achish would say, "Where have you made a raid today?" And David would say, "Against the southern area of Judah, or against the southern area of Jerahmeelites, or against the southern area of Kenites." David would save neither man nor woman alive to bring news to Gath, saying, lest they should inform on us. Thus David did, and thus was his behavior all the time he dwelt in the country of the Philistines. So Achish believed David, saying, "He has made his people Israel utterly abhor him. Therefore he will be my servant forever." Okay, guys. So really today what we did is we set ourselves up. We got through chapter 27 here. We will really dig into this together tomorrow. So read it, be prepared. Chapter 27 here, because David's in the land of the enemy, in Ziklag, a place that already belongs to them to the Israelites in the first place. He's lying to the king, to seek this refuge. And what lesson will that provide for us? We'll see that tomorrow. So God bless you guys, and go forth throughout your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.